Hey, so welcome back to another episode of the Dank Tank Podcast. And I'll just get this right out of the way. Like, share, subscribe. If you like what we do, share it around. Stay for listen. And tonight, I'm going to let Alan carry us into our special guest. So, Alan, take it away,
Yeah,
man.
thank you. I want to say this first. I've interviewed a former NFL quarterback, and I wasn't this nervous or excited either. So I just want to let you guys know that. No pressure, though, for our guest. But let me introduce her. After 20 years as a broadcast journalist on national radio and television, including like ESPN, Fox, and Disney, to kind of narrow down a long but distinguished list, our guest tonight is somebody who walks the walk and talks the talk, and she investigates Earth's creepiest hotspots of Bigfoot, Dogman, strange lights, and hauntings. She's a rotating guest host on Coast to Coast AM and produces her own creepy hotspot investigations on her website, bluerocktalk TV. And I've always wanted to find myself on a radio or television show like the ones that she's all over, but until I discover Bigfoot, the opportunity to interview an expert in all things spooky will do. So please welcome Connie Willis.
And the crowd roars.
Yay.
Woo! So, welcome aboard, Connie.
Well,
Welcome,
thanks,
Connie.
you guys. Nice to be here. Thanks. You guys all have that great voice. Like, I'm a Johnny Cash fan. I don't know if you all know Johnny Cash, but
Oh
look
yeah,
back
I grew up on
at that.
Johnny
Oh,
Cash.
he's
Yes,
my
we do.
man. Oh, I got to meet him and bring him on stage before, but I
No
was just
way.
listening I was just listening to him, and he's got that, wonderful voice. And then when I came in and was hearing you guys all talk, I was like, whoa, you didn't hear me yet because it wasn't where you could hear me yet. But I was like, man, they all got this nice, deep Johnny Cash voice. Yeah, all of
J-
you all
J-
came across like that.
Johnny
I
Cash is
will.
hanging up on my living room wall right now.
Oh, he's the best. He was the best. Yeah, he was
That's
really
going in my
nice, you
Twitter bio.
guys. He was really cool. You know how there's people along the way, because I've done the TV and the radio stuff, you meet a lot of celebrities and doing music radio, you meet a lot of the artists, the musicians, and you'll meet them and okay, cool, whatever. You just do your thing. You're just working, they're working, everybody's doing their job of what they're supposed to do. We'll play their music or bring them on stage or whatever. But you always meet these people and you've seen their posters and how they look and how they come across. And some people are a lot shorter and some people are a lot taller. Some people are a lot dorkier, whatever it is. But Johnny Cash was everything anyone ever said, ever. He was the only person I've ever met that was absolutely everything everybody said. He had an aura around him that you just were like in awe. And he was the nicest, coolest, greatest person. He was just, oh, I'm so happy I got to meet him.
I'm happy hearing about this.
Yeah,
really.
Willie Nelson was cool too.
Oh, man, Willie.
Yeah.
I got on his bus. It had a little reek. It had a certain smell to it, but it did. It did
Wonder
have that.
what that was.
He was so cool though. Very nice guy too. I like the country guys. They were
he-
great.
Willie Nelson
Yeah.
strikes me as the kind of guy who doesn't have a mean bone in his entire body.
He would stand up for whatever needed to be stood up, for, and that's cool. And I don't think he's has to do anything vicious because there's a troop of people that would do it for him.
And you can
Absolutely.
even hear his how nice of a man he was in his music as well.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to talk about Willie Nelson or Johnny Cash, but that is completely fine to start off with because
Well,
I
you did
don't
say you
think
were a
it's-
music man, Alan.
I am, but I'm not as familiar with those guys. I'm more of a '90s rock guy, But I do appreciate those two fellas. So and Garth Brooks too, right? Garth Brooks.
Garth Brooks.
Oh
Yes.
man, my mom raised me on Garth Brooks.
Same.
Yeah, it was a staple in my household too. My mom loved her some Garth Brooks.
Oh,
Do you like
dude.
Who?
Garth Brooks.
Who and Garth? Oh, I thought you said somebody else in
No,
Garth.
no, just
So
my mom loved herself some Garth Brooks.
okay. Well, I was doing country music radio around all those names you're talking about, and I was in Orlando at the time, which is where all the country guys like to come there because they were pretty much family people, right? So they could that's one of the cities that they could bring their family to, their wife and their kids, because they could go to Disney, they could play golf, they could go to the beach, right? So they had it all set up right there. They loved coming there. So we had we were a huge station known across the United States. I was doing the midday shift there. So all of them loved to come our way. And so Garth, I met Garth. It was right when he was kind of going through he had one wife with the kids, and then he moved over to,
What you mean,
was it
Chris
Trisha?
Ledoux? Was it Chris Ledoux that moved over?
No. This was and I don't want to get into all their
Yeah.
little things like that, but yeah, most people that know Garth would know that story where he moved over to. It was what Trisha Yearwood, wasn't it? Or
I think
no,
so.
is that right?
No.
Yeah, is that it?
Sounds
Yeah,
right.
I think so.
Sounds
I think
right.
that was it. Yeah, I'm mixing up some of the names in my head, but yeah, so he switched over to her. But you could see it. It was before anything was ever announced, and it was sad. I remember just in the studio going, "Oh my gosh, there's his wife and kids, and obviously they already know that this is going on." And we all knew it on the backside before anybody ever knew it out in public. But I remember him when I was talking to him before. You always talk to them before you bring them out on stage, right? So you get to know them a little bit. What would you like me to say? How are you? Nice to meet you. I play your music, and you want them to know who you are too, so they'll know you're not just coming up there and hey, sign my shirt or something like that. You're like, hey, I'm actually doing work with you. So I remember he was some of them will just jump up at you in a way of, wow, they're very, very different. They're very this, they're very that. I didn't get that from Garth at all. I didn't get what I got from Garth is a businessman all the way across the board. He was a businessman, and he, ran it.
Did we lose you?
No,
Oh,
I'm here.
I'm sorry.
No.
I thought someone was saying something.
No, I think we all cut each other off at the exact same time and just stopped.
Priceless.
That happens. No, go on though.
Yeah,
You're
you're
saying
doing.
he's a businessman.
That's all I picked up from him is that he was this businessman. It was a business for him. It was total business. And people that I knew that knew him personally, where he lived, they were neighbors or close by. They said the same thing. He's just a businessman, just a, big businessman. He knew what to do, how to do it, when to do it, how to say it. He did some, I did notice too, he did some techniques that is known as, and I don't know if this is what he studied, but I know they were NLP. It's neuro linguistic programming. It came out in the 70s. Where, yeah, so he was using some of those techniques. I could see that he was doing them as we were all sitting around talking to him. He was remembering people's names. There's ways to use that type of method and techniques. It's a huge subject, the NLP, but one of the things is being able to remember people's names by, association type thing. Like Steve, somebody tells me their name is Steve, and then they have, for some reason, maybe they were eating a hamburger and there's a piece of a pickle or something on the side of his cheek. I would always be like, Steve, pickle Steve, or something like that. And you could tell he was doing that to remember everybody's name so that the entire time he was there with you, he would be able to say your name. And he would say that a lot. He would always repeat your name to you, which, always makes you really like that person when they do that. So he was very cognitive of those types of things. And I noticed that.
That's a really good trait to have.
Yeah. Worked
We
for
used to do
him.
that- We used to do that in Afghanistan when we'd go to villages that we frequented a lot. I would sit there and see these people, and I would think of a name for them based on what they're wearing, because you're not going to talk to these people
Yeah.
most of the time. But
Yeah.
hey, there's never mind. I'm not going to get into the names I would call people. I have to get really
Flannel
creative.
Jack,
But
right?
you know what I mean? It's the same concept, and
Yeah.
it works, because it's really surprising how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just to add to that, I mean, I served in Afghanistan, and when we had to deal with a lot of local nationals that would come through the front gate, and we'd see these people repeatedly every day. I mean, a lot of them were named Muhammad, but every now and then they'd pick up nicknames. But one Muhammad would be related to something like a job that he'd be coming in to do. So let's say he's coming in. One of the local nationals named Muhammad is coming in to work at the kitchen. So kitchen Muhammad. So like I'd instantly kind of pick up his face and realize what I mean, his name's Muhammad, and then what he actually does for a job.
One Muhammad, two Muhammad, red Muhammad, blue Muhammad.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah. So
and we're not joking. A lot of them are named Muhammad over there.
it's
Yeah.
it's not a it's not like any what do they call that it's not being
Stereotype?
racist or stereotype. Yes, it's not a stereotype. A lot of them are. It's like people who were named Mike back. You know, people who were born around the 50s or the 60s or the late 40s. A lot of them were named Mike.
Hey, Mike.
That's the Mike in Afghanistan, basically, or the
Yeah.
Joe or something like that.
Yeah.
Huh. I do know that. I know when I was going to college, there was a lot of Muhammads. I just remembered that. I'm like, man, everybody's Muhammad. How do you, who's who? Why'd they do that? You know? Yeah, I just thought it was just a religious type thing that they gave everybody that name. And they seem to have like 4 names, though, too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the Catholic
Mm.
equivalent is calling your daughter Mary.
And what is, and also, is it, I guess, Hispanics? They're always Maria.
Yeah,
Oh,
Maria
yeah.
Girls are always Maria.
or
Yeah, Italian
Jesus.
as well.
Oh, a lot of
Yeah.
Jesuses.
You don't hear Presbyterians or Protestants call their kids Jesus.
I know, that's true. Well, when I first saw this one guy that he's a Bigfooter, his buddy that goes out with him is, he had just sent me, his name, and I was like, no, I wasn't realizing. I'm not in the part of the world where there's a lot of Hispanics, so I was just like, this guy calls himself Jesus, and then,
Are you talking about
of
the fellow
course,
Are you talking about the
I
fellow
learned
that you interviewed maybe right before Christmas?
that.
He did the prophecies book. He was talking about like the oh, it's the Aztecs or not the Aztecs, but gosh, you know what I'm talking about though. He was
The Mayans.
Mayans and the Mayan calendar and the other calendar. What's that?
The Aztec. I don't know. Now I'm not even sure. Who did I talk to?
Okay, I'm gonna have to look it up then, Connie.
Please do. I should know
look it up
myself.
because I remember listening to it. And it was really fascinating. He was talking about the prophecies of like the end of the world prophecies, how it was supposed to be like in what 2012. It might be 2021. Let me get back. Let me get on the Coast website. Anyways, let's get into what you do with Blue Rock Talk though first.
Cool.
Tell us about that because that's your main gig, correct?
Yeah, it's called Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. It was originally set up to be a radio talk show. It was going to be very similar to Coast, but me. And I was looking to syndicate it just like Coast to Coast. At the time, I didn't know that much about Coast. I'd been in radio, I guess 15 years but also television for 20 years. And I was just wanting to get back into, when you do all that work, you end up doing shows for somebody else. Even if it was music, you're still talking about some other artist's music. Hey, this was Johnny Cash or this is whoever, right? And the TV work I did, it was always, this is what they do at Disney, or this is a race car driver and this is what he does. Everything was everybody else's passion but mine. And in doing that, most of my work was live. Okay, radio was live. The TV shows were live because they were car racing, boat racing, whatever. I didn't really do that many tape shows. I did, but for the most part, it was live stuff, which I absolutely love. A lot of people run from that because if you mess up, you're live. But that's kind of the fun of it. It's like, bring it on. One Take Willis was my name, so it was cool, right? It's fun. It makes you. It's exciting. But I noticed, my gosh, I'm working my tail off because I'm having to learn really quickly what somebody else's passion is of decades, whether it's the race car driver or whatever. I had to learn about that and then spit it back out like I knew exactly what I was talking about and had known it for decades as well. Y'all, that's hard. That is hard to do. And it wears you out. It keeps you on the ball. But man, at one point I said, I just hope that one day I can have my passion and talk about it. Because especially at one point in the television world, they started hiring like I would just be, I'm a broadcaster. I took improv classes. I took broadcasting journalism classes, print journalism classes. Those are my background, how to learn to shoot film, video, whatever. You got all that stuff behind you and how to perform. But it's like, it's a whole lot of stuff going on, but you're taught to be ready for any subject that was thrown at you. And usually Hollywood, New York, when you're talking about the national work, they hire you based on your last show. You're only as good as your last show. And they didn't care if it was boating, race, mountain biking, Disney, whatever it might have been. They didn't care what the show was. They just knew that you just did one and it was good. And they'll bring you on to whatever the next show is. They didn't really care at the time. This is when I was doing it, that they didn't care if you don't have any background in it or anything, just that you could do it, because we would be taught to spit it back out. Well, it's very tiring that way. Then at one point they stopped doing that and they just wanted the experts in that field. So you guys can see that, you watch a football game, who are your announcers? They're all ex-football players. You're watching baseball or this or that. It's all these X's. And you watch golf, you got a couple broadcasters still along the way, but for the most part, that's who's talking to you. Right. So, and that's cool. I get it, but I hated it at the point because I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm a broadcaster. So I just thought, man, what is my hobby? What would my hobby be? What would my passion be that I could talk about? Well, unfortunately, and unfortunately I say this, and the reason why is because my passion is the Bigfoot, the UFO, the aliens, the ghosts, the remote viewing, all these things that we can't explain is what I like. I'm interested in. Why? Because these things come to me. I grew up in a haunted house. I didn't like just walk and go, hey, this is what I want to learn. These things happen to you. Anybody in this field knows that has a passion of it. It's because it happens to you. You see it, it's around you, and you want to know what it is. Maybe some people get more than others, but that's where I thought, well, there's my passion. I can talk about that anytime, any place, bring it on. However, here's the bad part about that. There's like I could do boat racing, car racing, basketball, football, whatever, and everybody would think I'm credible. They would give me another gig, whatever. But once you start talking about this world, you start losing credibility with people. They stop calling you for shows because they think you're a nut now. And the thing about it is, and you guys may or may not believe this, but I bet you're on my side on this. We are more credible because this stuff is real. It's real. So we should be considered more credible.
Right. I'm with you. I grew up in a haunted house. I think I told you when we were in kind of pre-production talk that I grew up in a house that was part of the Underground Railroad. And it was also a funeral parlor / doctor's office. So you can imagine what kind of things went on in that house. When the house was renovated back in the 80s, they found soldiers or slaves' diaries. And those are in the County Historical Society now. I really couldn't read them, but just the history and then the things that I saw, and I wasn't the only one who saw them in my house. We had a couple foster kids as well come in after me, and they saw the same exact thing that I described. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, I don't really tell a whole lot of people these things because they, I mean, I'm 15 years old going to school. Like, yeah, I just saw a ghost, last night. I didn't sleep. Sorry, I can't do my test. That's not going to fly.
Yeah, run from that kid. He's an idiot.
Right.
He'll get away. Right. Something wrong with him. No, I know. That's exactly right. Well, that's become a problem. And I had agents that would tell me that quit talking about that stuff. You're not going to get any more work. They want somebody credible. Well, I am credible. In fact, I'm more credible because I'm telling you something that's true, and I have the guts enough to tell you because it's true. They should be like me. They should like me because of my courage, But no. But that's what Blue Rock Talk is. It started out as after I did a bunch of TV work, and I thought, man, I'm exhausted from talking about everybody else's thing. Let me talk about what I can do. And I missed radio, and I thought the only way I'm ever going to get back into radio, it wasn't going to be with music. It was going to be with talk. And so that's where I put this thing together, this Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. Now, you tell me if the cadence doesn't work. It was like Coast to Coast with George Norrie, Ground Zero with what's my buddy's name? He's gonna kill me. He does Ground Zero. Anyway, yeah, I'll just skip
Clyde
over
Lewis?
that. Yeah, with Clyde Lewis. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis, Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. It had the same cadence, right? And Blue Rock is the Earth. We're talking Earth Talk, Earth's most interesting conversations. That was the original put together. And I was traveling. I was basically going to New York, LA, trying to get on a syndicated show. And I had a really huge guy that would hang out with me to sit with me in these great big, in these great huge meetings to try to get something syndicated. He was a big network television guy. And so I had it all going for me. Everything was great. But the syndicators, basically what they do is they start out, well, we'll test it in this, little local, town. And if that goes well, we'll put it in another one and another one. And that's how radio syndication usually grows, like that. It's normally not where they put you on and you've got all these stations at once. That's usually the rarity. They like to do the other way. It's just safer for them. So it's all kind of changed a little bit along the way, but that's where I was at the time, and I went all over. And I really didn't know much about Coast at the time. I knew it was on. I knew I liked it. I knew, all I knew about radio, because I'd been in it for so long, is, hey, every city's got about 10 stations. Some of them have the same music. They just compete. No difference. I didn't really realize how big and how huge Coast was. Not that I didn't think it wasn't big, but I didn't realize the layout. They're pretty much on every station at night. Local affiliates, they have to pay for those stations. They have to pay for people. But hey, if you can get it syndicated, that will come with a deal that you have, and you just play that. And hey, man, good for them. It was everywhere. And nobody wanted to go, well, why would I get rid of that for you? We already got this set up already. It's part of the deal. So we don't have any openings. So you would hear that over and over again, and just thought, man, hey, I get it. That's pretty cool. Good for them. And this one guy that was going to put something together for me that was huge in radio passed away. But before he passed away, he had said, hey, you ought to just give Coast a call at one point. I bet they'd hire you. Now, I didn't think there was even openings. I just didn't realize that. I didn't do my homework enough. I just didn't think anything of that. George Norrie's the guy. How am I going to get work? He's the guy. Well, I didn't realize they were on 7 nights a week. They were doing this and that and all these other things they do. I called, and, all this work I did going to New York and LA and all these places and talking to all these people and all these hours and nothing coming from it. It was like 6 minutes later after I had emailed this the lady, boom. Anyway, within 30 minutes, I was offered a gig on Coast, and here I am, and I love it. And from that, I took my Blue Rock Talk and said, well, I was already doing shows with Blue Rock and doing it on YouTube, doing Crypto Connie and all this stuff. I just kept that going because it's just part-time on Coast. But very nice to be able to do it. And what I do is mine's actually video. I live stream, and I have something called Far Out Thursday, where I talk to people that do anything far out and see anything far out. And then on Fridays, it's Bigfoot Friday. So that's all cryptid. And then I do Creepy Hotspots, which is either a live investigation of a haunting, 10 to 12 hours. It's all live. Or we go camping 3 to 5 nights where there's Bigfoot, Dogman, strange lights, and stuff like that. And so far, knock on wood, we have had activity at every one of our creepy hotspots. So far, something has been seen, something has happened where it's significant to say something's happened. And people watch it. Basically, I take you with me. So we're live streaming, everything's interactive, everybody's in the live chat, everybody's watching. And they'll see it. They'll be like, we see one, there's something over there by the bush, So it's cool. Everybody gets to be a part of it. And by the way, we've had a lot of vets that really love it because they feel You guys tell me what that connection is, because a lot of vets say things like, "No, we're the ones that would love your show more than anybody,"
It's the thrill
and
of
I'm
the
not
hunt.
sure. What is
Yeah.
it?
The thrill of the hunt.
That makes
It,
sense.
I'll give you
yeah,
that.
But you
I
but
like
you also believe as well.
Yeah.
y-
Like,
eh,
I've never thought of why I'm into this stuff. Maybe it's because of growing up in a haunted house. I
Yeah,
have a
I
very
would
open
think so.
mind. I think you have to
Yeah,
have an open mind for anything in life, but especially for these
yeah.
things that we all like. People will, I mean, I've been there. You get told you're crazy, right? And I don't know why it's not a I never really talked to anybody when I was in the army about like Coast to Coast because I never really actually got to listen to Coast to Coast while I was in the army. I mean, if I was awake during those times and had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning for PT, I was going to be a little bit fried. So I never really got to listen to it a whole lot, but I knew I loved it. I was listening to Coast for years before I went to the army. But what do you guys think? I mean, other than the thrill of the hunt, that seems.
uh,
What else is
That's
there?
interesting though
the
to know that even.
environments that we've also been in as well. I mean, I don't know.
Creepy.
Yeah, I've been into some really creepy environments, and
That's
being in
true.
those environments, especially when you're supposed to be the apex predator around there, being a soldier, you're in a tank or you're on the ground and you're armed to the teeth, but knowing that something is around you that could possibly be bigger and just ultimately, and you don't know about it. And you don't know about it, like, because there was a few times at the front gate of Afghanistan where all the only thing that you'd hear is the silent hum of the generator engines and the lights above you.
Mm.
But elsewhere beyond the light is just darkness,
Yeah.
and it was and not knowing what's out there
yeah,
just intrigues
that's one thing
your mind.
that's one thing about Afghanistan. Like when it was dark there, it was dark.
It was dark.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when we were out on op, like it'd be dark at nighttime, and you'd try to throw on your NVGs, and there still wouldn't even be enough light to barely see anything.
What's the terrain there?
It
Rocky.
depends on Afghanistan. Yeah, I mean it's like
It'd be-
where I was in eastern Afghanistan where it's near Pakistan border. So it looked like all around we were like in a valley, so all around us were mountains. And actually a lot of it what I was walking through was fertile fields. It would be turned into fertile fields like whether it be uh weed or
Corn.
crops to eat, yeah, corn. I didn't get a chance to see too many of them. I got to see some of them sprouting before I got injured, but yeah, a lot of them were weed plants. That was a big something big that they ship out
Weed
of
and opium.
Afghanistan. Yeah.
Weed and
What
opium.
when you say, are you saying wheat or
I'm sorry,
weed?
Weed, like
Ma-
marijuana.
marijuana. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
at first I
The,
thought,
the
no,
devil's
you said
lettuce.
wheat.
But then you go south, which is like more of a flat desert. And then where were you guys? I can't remember.
I was in the
exactly.
south. I was in just at the edge of Kandahar province at Panjwai.
Yeah, I was in Kandahar province, right at the airfield.
So when you all say you're doing that, now this is just the thought I get because I have no idea. And actually, my nephew was in Afghanistan. And I know it came back very different, very mature and very old adult. And he was actually given a golf scholarship to like Arizona, one of the big golf schools. And then he said, "No, I'm getting into the Air Force," and he shot off to Afghanistan. But he came back totally, Mr. Mature, all this stuff, and it was always fun to listen to him, but I never got into some of the stuff I wanted to ask him. I mean, when you guys say this is where I was, what was it like? Were you sitting there? All I can do is when I picture a soldier, I just picture a soldier and he squatted down and got a gun and just ready to shoot at
Oh.
any time.
That
What
isn't too
is that?
far fetched.
No?
No.
Oh,
For at least
okay.
myself. Okay, so your experience is going to vary in Afghanistan depending on a lot of different factors, especially the one being your job. You know, me being infantry, that is pretty darn close to what I would be doing. Like we would be basically my day would be we'd get up and we'd have our mission, right? And most of the time we would either drive or walk, depending where we were going. Depending where we were going through too. There's places where we'd not want to walk and be on foot because we knew that we were going to be getting shot at, So a lot of times we'd show up and we would get around the village, just see what's going on, get a feel for the people. A lot of it was talking to people. We'd have our interpreters, and a lot of people they were interested in us. And then there was the people that were kind of behind the crowd that I kept my eye on more than the people who were right in my face. Um, but generally it was pulling a lot of security, which is what you're thinking of when you see a soldier on his knee and with his gun raised. That's pulling security, and a lot of it was that. And then a lot
Mm.
of it was talking to the locals, getting to know them. You get to build their trust as well. That was a big thing, because if you can get their trust, they might tell you where these guys are hiding, because the guy that just shot at you, he throws his gun down and picks up a fork or like uh, you know, whatever kind of farming equipment he's got in his hand. Oh no, I haven't seen them. Sorry, sir. But if you can build a
Oh.
rapport with these people, they will rat on them. But they have such a strong, the Taliban would have such a strong hold on the locals that they would scare them that badly into lying to us, lying to anybody
Mm.
who's asking about them. So you were trying. It was a struggle to build rapport with them, and it made it hard because you would have 1 year deployments, right? So then the people that my unit replaced, they were out there shooting up like it was the Wild West, and we had to go in and repair a lot of broken hearts and minds. So I mean, it's that's how my experience was. It was a lot more social than it was shooting.
Yeah, same with mine, and I agree with Alan on this one. Like when working on the front gate, we had over 1,200 local nationals would come through, and you'd have to, of course, be look aggressive with your weapon, pull security, manage traffic, but you're also interacting with the locals, and you start to get to know them more as people, and you realize like these guys are just coming in to work. Their culture may be a bit different, and some ideas we may not see eye to eye on, but they're only there to work, and they're more than happy to rat out any kind of Taliban activity that wants to disrupt that work, though. So you kind of have to. So I think in what I was taught was that it's a 3-block war. You're going to be a soldier first, a humanitarian, and then a peacekeeper. So you kind of have to wear almost three hats doing the job.
Were you trained for that though?
Kind of.
Yeah,
I mean, because it sounds like you were trained to do the combat type thing,
Yeah.
but were you trained to
My experience was
do
vastly
psychological
different
work?
yeah.
We learned how to
Um,
control a riot. Like, we got stuck in a village one night, our vehicles, and the whole village came down on us. Like, not in a bad way, but just when you have 2, 3, 400 people gathered around around you, you learn how to keep them back. And that's why I mean, I don't want to get political, but when I was watching some of these riots, like from where I live, we had some riots, and I was just amazed at how it turned into what it did. And I'm thinking, I don't think I would want to use that kind of force. Like, I did not want to use force on somebody who's unarmed. Like, I can defend myself, I feel like, against some people without having to use the kind of force that they were using. And we were never actually trained in that riot control. As far as my unit goes, we were just infantry, but you learned how to do it. And it was, you just gotta treat, if you treat people like people, that's what it came down
Yep.
to.
100% agree with you.
I don't know, man. My experience was pretty different than that because I was
See.
attached to an offensive force, man. I was either providing security while they were pulling IEDs out of the ground, or they were sending us out to pick a fight. But
Yeah.
that's really the only two options for a tank, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so we had that too. We would go out and look for IEDs, but I mean,
But that was
My
literally
platoon
my
was a little
entire
bit
tour
different.
was either IEDs or picking a fight.
We were just glorified security on mine.
we would rather not shoot people, but we
Yeah.
had to, yes. But it was easier to try and keep the peace and get people on our side. Why would we want to put ourselves in that situation? Sure, we can go out and probably be as offensive as we want, but at times, why would you want to do that? Like, you're expending a lot of effort and time that you could be, because you don't know who you're going to shoot. You might shoot
I
somebody,
know,
and
like, believe me,
the whole village could get real mad at you
I'm not
if
I'm
you
not
shoot the wrong
disagreeing.
person.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, I'm just saying that's the gamut
Yeah.
of experiences that we've had.
Yeah. But that explains that other hat, the peacekeeper hat that you kind of have to wear on. I mean, like if there is a riot happening, I mean, I'm not going to say you do something terrible and just waste the entire crowd, but you have to try to keep that peace. And also the humanitarian aspect of it is showing that you're not there to treat everyone like they're an enemy. You're there to try to at least build them on your side, maybe help them out than the state that they're in. Because if they're on a global scale, if they're calling in soldiers to another country, there's something seriously going on in that country that is wrong.
Yeah.
After you guys, and I don't know this world of conversation of what you can ask and what you cannot ask, because some people have said, oh, you got to be careful when you do that kind of thing, or at least I see people being careful. I always just ask what I'm curious about, and so if it crosses a line, let me know, because I don't know what that line is. So are you guys trained to? I get what you're trained for, but are you trained to handle what happens after you shoot somebody? Not just physically, what do you do after you do shoot somebody, and for the reasons that you do? Then what do? Is it like a country cowboy movie where then everybody just leaves? They always show how they shoot people and then they just go on. Nobody ever talks about
No.
getting the body. Nobody talks about doing
No.
anything. What happens?
I can tell you,
Are you taught to handle that emotionally and physically? What do you do?
emotionally, that was something you just had to deal with on your own. We were
They
never
never
went through
told
any
you.
training for that. But a
Mm.
lot of times we never see you'd know if you shot somebody. Like, I mean, it was a lot of times we were within close enough range where you could see that you put somebody down. But a lot of times, once the firefight, which is what we call a gunfight, a firefight, has pretty much diffused, they would drag away their dead or they're injured.
Mhm.
Rarely would you ever, unless we just completely run them over, like just move right through them. But we never knew the situation, the combat situation in an urban environment like where I was. There were so many corners and whatnot of places where they could sneak in and out. We weren't getting too aggressive. We were just trying to hold them off, basically. So a lot of times we wouldn't even find bodies. Now the times we did, we just, as bad as it sounds, we'd either have to call in the Afghan National Police if we were on foot, and they would come take the bodies, or we would strap them to our vehicles and take them to the police compound. That was
But
Well,
that's
at least you
what.
did that though. You didn't just
Yeah.
leave
Yeah.
them or something.
yeah. It wasn't very often though that we had to clean up
Yeah,
that
it's
sort
nothing.
of mess. They would generally like to take their people with them. That's when if we started putting them down in force like that, then they would start to retreat. So
Yeah, it's nothing. It's nothing like in video games or the movies where you see the artificial intelligence just leave their dead.
Yeah, yeah. And I didn't think that. That's where it was like, what happens? Because no one ever shows that part, and
Right.
and that part would probably, touch some people to where they thought,
Yeah.
wow, they're not just shot and now they're gone and oh yeah, hey, peace. They should show those things that happen, because I think it's that part where people realize what's really going on. And I think they always hide that part. Does that make
do.
sense?
They do.
What I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's even like one of the best movies I've seen. I don't know about you guys. The Lone Survivor. Has anybody seen that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
That is probably the closest to maybe how things would go. And even then, they've admitted that's they've done a bit of Hollywoodization with that movie, but the majority of that movie is pretty much true to the military. They brought in a lot of Navy SEALs to correspond for the filming of that movie and to train the guys. So as far as things go, that's pretty close.
Hell,
if-
yeah.
Actually-
if
They
I
even
had to
had
say.
Marcus Luttrell himself there.
Yeah,
Marcus
he
Luttrell
was.
there, yeah.
He was in the helicopter scene as well, just walking out.
Yeah.
So when people have the PSTD, right? Is that it? PSTD?
PTSD, post traumatic stress syndrome.
Okay. What? Wait a minute. Yeah.
Oh,
What? Say it again.
PTSD.
PTSD. Okay. When people have that, it's pretty much from that, right? The trauma of what they've seen happen to other people or what they've done to other people. Is that right? Would that be fair? Because usually they say, don't ask them, don't ask them.
Yeah.
No, that's
We're
a
cool
pretty
about it. We're
basic-
totally cool about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, I never ever got answers of why, because everybody's like, don't ever ask anybody why. And you're like, well, well, tell me, why do they feel this way? And the reason I'm asking, and I still want to know the answer, but because if you go into the world that I study, the people that are abducted by aliens, oh my gosh, now not at first is their fear, but it's like weeks later after whatever the ETs have done to turn them off and make them forget and make everything be cool, after it starts wearing off, and if they're aware enough to think about it and try to bring back the memory and try to really awaken their mind to what happened, they can't sleep at night. They're frightened. They're they have the same type of symptoms, but it's more of what would happen if you were that animal that was out in the wild and all of a sudden some big human comes in that you've never even seen before, and then they put you in a cage and you're like, oh, what is going on, right? You've seen animals when they look like that, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's basically what the abductees are going through, but they've been made to where they don't remember it. And then when whatever that is that wears off, and at one point they start feeling it, seeing it, they get that same trauma going on. So that's where theirs comes from, and I can see that. And so your all's is this. You guys also have it, but it's from what you've seen
Yeah.
too. So
Well, let me say this, and I want
right,
to. I might not be speaking for George or Tony here, but I have a lot of people know where I live. They all know that I've been in the military and that I've been injured and all that. And a lot of people who come to me with even online, like a lot of people see Combat Vet Gaming and they think, oh yeah, he's got PTSD. They want to ask me about it, but then they also have it too, and they're always like, well, I've got it, but it's not like yours. And I'm like, look, from people I've talked to, PTSD is PTSD or anxiety is anxiety. It doesn't matter
yeah,
what caused it, and a lot of people don't realize that. It's like mine isn't any more better, if that's for a lack of a better term. My PTSD doesn't mean more than your PTSD just because it happened while I was in the military. That doesn't mean, it's the symptoms are the same. It doesn't. Just talking to people that have it from different things, we're all the same. And so I think a lot of people, I wish, if you're talking to people, see what they think about that too. But I feel
yeah.
like, you know, it doesn't make us any different than anybody else. We all, if you have it, it's the same thing, and it's the same symptoms. So
Does it go away? Because I know the people that are abductees, they, if you guys know the story of Rendlesham and Brentwater, there was a lot. There's a lot of military UFO stuff, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
heard, yeah,
right,
yeah,
but like Jim Peniston, who I've talked to before, a just great guy. He was there for the Rendlesham thing that happened. He got up really close to the ship and everything, and he still has problems today. And that was like, I can't remember how many decades ago. He still has problems with that. So, I mean, does it ever go away at all, or is it always going to be there, that trauma, or what helps with it?
Is that, let me ask you, is that Rendlesham? Is that
Yeah,
in England? That
yeah, yeah,
okay, okay, I know what you're talking about now. Okay.
yeah.
Um
They were like the beams of light were going down where they thought there might have been weapons and this and that, and it
yeah,
happened. It was there. It was happening for quite a bit. Yeah,
okay, okay. For myself, you know what? Talking about things has helped, but it's not like forced talking. Like I've never went to any veterans groups. I didn't want to talk to people who I didn't really know. Like with Tony and George, we didn't start talking about our experiences until probably, I don't know, was it a few weeks into like
Yeah.
once I
Doing our
joined the
first
podcast?
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think we'd start to feel comfortable. So it's a comfort factor, and at this point, like, you know, for myself at least, talking about it helps a lot. Um,
And you see,
that's probably been the main thing that's helped me is just talking.
yeah.
For other people, it works differently. George?
No, and I agree with you, Alan. And even talking to some older veterans, because I ended up having to go to veteran support groups too, and hearing some other veterans tell their experiences. Now their experiences, because they came from other conflicts than what I did, and their situations, and like you mentioned before, are a little are a little different, and some of the experiences may have been a bit more maybe more dramatic, but the symptoms still stay the same, and it's how they manage to get over those those past memories or those past traumas is what's gonna dictate is what's gonna help them move on. Like like Tony, he's working, he's a father, and same thing with myself. I'm trying to get back up on my feet as well. getting out into the workforce. And Alan is constantly making content online. But the thing with what I'm trying to say is about PTSD is that it's not about letting it get to the person who has it, and always constantly keep reassuring them that the trauma is over. It may still be in your head, but you have to keep on carrying on.
Yeah.
Can I ask you all what yours is from? Is that okay to ask? All I know is I
Yeah.
hear voices, and people. That's all I know of you
Um,
guys, your voice.
I would
The
just say
Johnny
it's
Cash, low, nice voices. Sorry.
There's a
You're
lot.
good.
There's a lot. In fact, go ahead, Alan.
Oh, I was gonna say like it's not one single thing for me. It's just kind of a conglomerate of experiences. In a
Yeah.
short amount of time. It's I think
Your cup fills
that
up
is
real
the hardest
fast.
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See, people like us, we don't know. We have no
Yeah.
idea because
Like
usually that's
I
what I
have
hear is no, don't talk about it.
I've seen more people die.
Everybody's different though.
I've seen more people die, and I've had to kill more people than I care to count. And in such a short time, it wears on you because it's like, is it like is my soul tainted? Like, if you're a religious person, like I guess I'd consider myself at least, agnostic. I'm not exactly sure what's gonna happen when I die, but I've got a fairly good idea. Like, it weighs on you. Like it's almost like an existential dread. If that
Okay.
like
Yeah.
Okay.
The dread is of what might happen
like
afterwards.
what you feel about yourself is like, well, shit, this is what I'm capable of. Like I've literally just done this. I've witnessed this, and I carried on like it was nothing.
And also a lot of
yeah.
things that would trigger those would be sights, smells,
Mhm.
maybe reliving, maybe
I
like
s-
deja vu
I still can't eat
moments.
SpaghettiOs.
Yeah, like I can't stand
Huh.
being around curry or
and roast beef sandwiches. I will not. I refuse to eat roast beef sandwiches
And
I
why?
had-
Why is that?
because
Why?
every time I had a roast beef sandwich in Afghanistan, something bad would happen. Either someone would
What
blow
the-
up, something would blow up, or someone would start shooting.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
and those kind of those kind of actions have been repeated in other soldiers and other conflicts too. Like being in a veteran group, I talked to some engineers in Bosnia, and they'd explain that like they change one of their socks every other day just to prevent something from happening, because it took them 2 weeks to clear an entire map grid square of like I guess I could say it's like a mile long minefield. And anyway, that's what their job was, to clear this entire minefield, and it was like day in day out prodding. So each one of them had their own sort of ritual to keep them going.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
That's why I'm laughing over here. I'm thinking about my ritual. You guys don't want to know, so I'm not gonna say it.
I do. I want to know.
Okay, you want to know? I didn't change my underwear for 6 months.
You're right. I didn't want to know that.
I had it.
If it
I had
worked,
it worked up until it didn't work, right? So
Yeah.
I changed my underwear way more often now now that I'm out of Afghanistan than I did there. But it was just one of those things where it was something weird that you latch onto, and I didn't latch on to anything except for that. I must have been a really comfortable pair. I don't remember. This was 10 years ago, guys.
It definitely wasn't Saks.
Wasn't it what?
You meant socks, right?
No, Saks, the
underwear brand.
Yeah, the underwear brand.
Oh, I only remember. Yeah,
They're
this is like
reputed to be the most comfortable underwear on the planet Earth.
I can agree because I have like 3 pairs.
I'm probably further the limb. Okay, I don't know. This was 10 years ago. I don't remember. I just remember now looking back on it. It's kind of like a little bit ridiculous, I try not to latch on to rituals like that or superstitions that maybe small little superstitions. But I'm gonna change my clothes every day at least once.
Yeah.
Well, are you all wounded, vets?
I am. I don't know about them.
Go ahead.
Tony?
I'm not wounded. I voluntarily discharged.
Oh, okay.
I got medical release because honestly, I went overseas, not a scratch on me. I come back to my country and I get wounded. Like I get beaten and broken on training exercises day in day out. So
George,
they had
don't be modest, man. You almost got ripped in half by the turd of a
Yeah.
tank.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I guess I'll just be a little bit more out there. So a tank turret almost ripped me in half.
Ugh. What's
So
a
I got
tank? A tank what?
a tank turret. You know, the main gun on the tank. As it was
Oh.
traversing, it caught me or the machinery caught me and snapped my femur and pulled my hip.
Ah.
There you go.
Yeah. So they medically released my ass.
We were all medically discharged just for different reasons, or no, Tony, you weren't. You were just voluntary.
Yeah.
You should.
That's right. Yeah, and I kind of told you I was blown up by an IED and it broke my back, had some brain damage. The brain damage thing is what I struggle with the most. Like I told you, this is my whole existence on YouTube has just been like a confidence builder and how to talk better, and just
Oh,
to
that's right.
talk.
You
Period.
said that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's because I went when I first got back and I moved back home. I probably didn't talk to anybody around me for like 3 years. Like I just didn't talk to nobody. Like I talked to family, but like you said about your nephew, I was a little bit different of a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Totally.
it took me a while to open up to people again. And it wasn't anything anybody did necessarily. It was just the hole that you start digging yourself in a hole. If anybody's listening who has this, don't dig yourself in a hole.
Yep.
That's the like no matter what happens, don't dig yourself into a hole because that hole is so easy to dig once you start digging it. And then to get out of it is even harder.
Can confirm. It's taken me a lot to get myself out of that hole, man.
Mhm.
And you boys
you
have
know
done
what?
good.
You know what, you guys? I mean, these are things that could be prevented, right? I mean, our whole world is, there's a constant fight going on. This is what I think. Tell me, because you guys have been in those areas where, you're put into them. We don't, in our world, we really don't have to have that, right? If we all got along, you all would know how to speak about that better than me. But what I see is because if I go out in the woods and there's a Bigfoot or there's a whatever there is, and you see lights in the sky and beams down and all this alien stuff, the things that I enjoy trying to learn more and more about. To me, when you do experience these things, you become really tiny itty bitty. You realize how small you are. You realize how big God is. I know
Mhm.
some of you said you're not sure of that, but then you're like, okay, wait a minute. I was always taught it was me and then God.
Right.
No, there's a couple things right in between God and me, and I can know what else is in between me and God. Who am I? What am I? So you start thinking that way, and that's how your thoughts go. And if everybody knew about these things, there'd be nobody fighting. We would realize we're humans, we're earthlings, we are one. We might be different color, we might talk differently, we might have different ideas and thoughts and whatever, but we'd realize we're earthlings, we are humans, and we might pull together because we would be. And not that even matters. I'm not trying to, let's have that. But I'm just saying, when you think different, when you see any of these things, you think your mind instantly goes, okay, everything I was ever taught is wrong. And you don't even think about gossip or fighting or arguing or politics. None of that matters. You're so above it. Pretty much, I would say, would be the words, because you're like, oh, that's just little. What is this big, humongous question now of who are we that everybody gets as soon as they see that? Now, what you guys have gone through, it's like, can you comment to any of what I just said? Because I don't even know what I'm asking, because I mean, what you all have experienced, who wants to experience that? And
Right.
it could be prevented because that's all man-made, right? We've created that.
True.
And
Well,
the other, it's like you wake up to going, oh my gosh, I don't know anything that is true anymore, except I know that thing that I'm seeing is way more intelligent than me.
that kind of well, that would be a great segue into one of the things that we were going to ask you about. That would be dealing with, well, what if the things that you're talking about, like a Bigfoot or an aliens, what if that was all disclosed, right? What would what kind of impact would that have on the Earth or the human race as it is? And I think you've kind of touched on that, to where everything that we've experienced is man-made. I don't really necessarily have too much of an opinion on the war that I was in. I don't even know. Like, I couldn't even tell you what exactly our mission was there. So
I
how
still
can
don't
I
even
even
know.
comment on the whole war? Yeah. How can I comment
Yeah.
on the whole entire war, or even when I don't even know what I was doing when I was there in that war? If that sounds even crazier or weird.
I can sort of comment being on the main base in Kandahar, which you definitely see yourself as a small pitcher and a small part in a bigger picture, because that base
Yeah.
was huge. Like
Yeah.
you'd look over at the runway and you'd see tens of millions of dollars worth of hardware just sitting on a runway in the sun, and behind that there's 5 or 6 silos worth of munitions, everything from handgun ammunition to JDAM bombs that are I think they're worth like what, 10 grand a pop.
I don't know,
Wow.
but
I think more than that.
to Connie's question, I think what it would boil down to is if and when they show up, as much as humanity would band together and give aliens the stink eye, at least until we ascertain whether or not they're hostile. But like we would band together, but ultimately, if aliens are showing up, we're grossly out of our league. Like,
What do we have?
Are you kidding me though? I would be
against
the
them?
first to be like, "Hey, can I get on your ship? Can I go with you guys? Please, please, please."
No, you wouldn't.
I swear to God, I
You
would.
think you
I would
would?
want. if
You
as long as they're
think
not.
it.
If I don't fear them, Connie. If I don't
Yeah.
fear them, I would want to join. I would want to at least
Have you
see what
seen
what
one
is
though?
going on.
I would like their
No.
technology. I would love their technology.
I know. I know. I have not. Have you? Have you?
I
know
have.
you've experienced
I
a lot.
have.
Let's get into
And
that.
if
Let's
you
get into
see
a little bit of that.
one, well, the thing is, if you see, everybody's like, oh yeah, if I see one, I want to, whatever. What
I
you're
haven't
talking
seen
ET,
them, but I've
though,
seen their
not
ships.
okay. So y'all are okay. So are we just talking ET or Sasquatch? Because
We can talk about any of that. Whatever.
okay.
Well, I know that. What's your
Yep.
favorite subject? What is your very favorite thing? Like, what's something that you can give us a cool story and tell us a little bit about, like an experience that you've had, or something along those lines? Because you've been kind of interviewing us, and that's not what we. Well, I mean, it's fun
it's
and
just
all, but
conversation. That's all I do. Everybody's,
Yeah.
it's not an
It's a
interview. It's
great
conversation.
conversation.
It's conversation.
I like
it's
it.
all good though. It's
Yeah.
fun and all, but
It's a
so what is something that just pick an experience, whatever. You've had a lot of them.
Your most
And-
profound experience.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like,
Well,
I
it
mean, there's so many cryptids out there. I mean, especially with Alan's from Ohio. Like,
Yeah.
what was it? You have like the Ohio grass. You guys have like
We have
what?
the grass man.
You have the grass man. You have the frog man, and then you got the melon heads.
You know what's funny is I lived most of my life in
the
Ohio.
melonheads. That's so weird.
I've never experienced anything in Ohio. The only time I've experienced anything that felt, I'm sorry, the ghost things were in Ohio, but the I don't know what I would call it because I don't know what it was. I was in North Carolina. That's a whole different story, and I'm just
What
saying
did it
that
look like?
I didn't see anything, Connie. It was
Oh.
like, that feeling of overwhelming fear and dread out of nowhere. I'm
Yeah.
fishing in the woods at my sister's house, and it was like a mile-long hike from her house to the pond, right? And it's a big pond. And I've been there hundreds of times. Like, I'd go there and fish almost every day when we were down there visiting, and I never had any experiences. But all of a sudden, a feeling of dread came over me. I had no idea. I thought I heard something in the woods. I never saw anything, but I've never ran the mile that fast in my life back to her house. I never went back after that either.
It
So
sounds like
that's
most people, yeah.
That's my experience. So I don't know what it was. I didn't want to know what it was.
Well, wait, who was it that said that they would want to meet them?
Me.
Was that you?
That's aliens, though, not a
Well,
Bigfoot.
you
I mean,
just ran. Okay.
I would.
Well,
I mean, you don't. You're 14 years old in the woods by yourself, and no actual like weapon to defend yourself, and and that's different. But like, I would feel like if aliens were, at least they showed to be friendly, I would want to, see what is going on. Take me to where you live. I want to see where you live, type of thing.
But they might not think that. They may look at you and say, "Oh, what's this dirty mud monkey you want?"
Well, if they're
they
nice,
might say, "Hey, pick up the soap, buddy. Watch
Yeah.
out."
You
don't
look
want
like a
Maybe.
fucking ape man.
maybe we do. I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out one day. Hopefully, maybe. But
Yeah. Take
Well,
me
I
to your
think
ship doesn't translate to take me to your bedroom.
Okay, I'm trying to be like really positive here and think that there are a bunch of nice people or aliens, whatever you want to call them, a very nice species, and that they would be glad to intermingle with us. That's my hope. Okay,
According to that one Canadian defense minister and that fella in Israel, their former defense minister or something like that, or head of defense
Yeah.
research,
Something along those lines.
they are friendly.
see,
I have yet to
Well,
be convinced.
yeah. And what I've learned is, I think there's a variety of all of it, and some are nice and some are not. And I